all about the interface between academia and industry. And there's been an awful lot of work in the background to this program, but actually industry has been involved in that right the way through. So where should I start? Mathematics and energy programs and activities go back nearly 10 years here at the INI. So in 2010 there was an Energy Systems Week. In 2011 there was an Open for Business Day called the Energy Systems Day. In 2013 there was a second Energy Systems Week. And many, possibly even most, of the UK-based academics here in this room have been involved and served in various ways in making those things happen. I think in the few short minutes that I've got, I couldn't possibly list everybody from academia, industry, bodies like the INI and the EKSRC who've contributed, but you know who you are. There are also very good records of these things on the INI website, and the whole community is very grateful to you for making those things happen. So by 2013, I would say the momentum had started through activity here for maths and energy in the UK. National Grid had already been involved in those early events and laid out for the first time here some of the mathematically related challenges, big picture challenges that they face. But of course, energy supply is a very international problem, and so shortly afterwards, the community here started to prepare an event which reached out to maths and energy people in India, in fact, so a country with very many contrasts in its energy system as well as commonalities. And we had a team of 9 academics who came over and joined us in 2016 at the sister institution to the INI, the International Centre for Mathematical Sciences in Edinburgh, for a week's workshop. And again, we had extensive involvement from industry there. And I would say that at that meeting, that started relationships and collaborations, again between academia and industry, not just between UK and India, but also in fact between EDF in France and an academic in the US, people who also happen to be speaking at the event. So by that time, we started to pick up also some international momentum in the energy maths activity here in the UK. And so after a well-earned summer break in 2016, the community started preparing for this programme that's now happening in 2019. And we deliberately started by appointing a very international, very mixed academia industry, very broad scientific advisory committee. And so, for example, that committee had representation from National Grid, from EDF, RTE and FX Spot, and it's great to see both National Grid and RTE represented here today. Of course, as well as being very international, energy supply is a very interdisciplinary issue, and so that committee was essentially bringing together 3 disciplines, so mathematics, power systems engineering and economics. And we have ended up with, in the programme, with a beautiful balance between those 3, and also a very international makeup of our participants. So we have people, for example, indeed from India, from South America, from Russia, as well as Australia, New Zealand, Europe, and the US. And so from the beginning, the proposal for this programme was informed by the industrial input. And then after some constructive criticism from the INI Steering Committee, for which many thanks, the proposal was approved. We then started to have annual events in January 2017 and January 2018, just to make sure that we were really ready to start the programme this year. So we called them impact workshops, and they were really designed to hear again from industry what their view was of big picture problems. So in January 17 at ICMS, we had a week's event focusing on distribution network level and very many of the UK DNOs were represented there, as well as some perspectives from Europe and again from the US. And then in January 2018, we had an event kindly hosted by National Grid, at which many of the folk from National Grid popped in and spent a couple of days with us, and that was more focused on markets and on the transmission level. So finally, here we are, arrived at the programme proper, and my job is to tell you a little bit right now about the programme. So another aspect of another dimension of energy problems is that they address very many different timescales, and that's how we've organised the programme. So our first workshop happened just a couple of weeks ago, and that was about operational timescale problems. And I think those of you who were here for that event will agree with me that there was a wonderful level, particularly of discussion after each talk between academia and industry. Our second workshop moves on to address markets and investment, so from timescales of days, weeks, months for markets onto years and decades for capital investment in energy system infrastructure. And then our final workshop is titled Looking Forward to 2050, so the timescale there is reasonably clear. So looking forward to the most ambitious targets that governments are setting around the world for decarbonisation and sustainability of our energy supply. In between those three workshops, we have a number of research tracks, and they are 1 or 2 week focus periods on specific topics, each with its own academic lead. And I would like to tell you, we're near the end of the first one, and I'd just like to give you a little anecdote of how that interface with industry has worked in real time during our first research track. So we didn't know exactly who wanted to attend, so we spammed everybody in the beginning with the details of what the research track would be about. And actually that reached David Lenihan at National Grid. He was on our advisory committee but wasn't able to attend this week. And he said, well, I'm sorry I can't make it, but here are 3 problems that I think are very relevant to your research track. And so on the first morning we looked at these problems and we agreed that they really did cover the scope of the track quite nicely. So we swapped a few emails and text messages. By 4 o'clock that day we were having a video conference with David. We then had a second video conference with him on Wednesday last week. And then also in real time, Patrick Panciatici decided to arrive early. So he arrived and was able to spend yesterday with us to help us further develop that model that we've worked up in response to those 3 questions from National Grid. And I think there's real potential there for us to scope out an ongoing benchmark problem, which in ongoing collaboration with both National Grid and RTE. And there's still 2 days to go of the first research track. So it's been really exciting to see that real-time interaction. And there are 8 more research tracks to come. So that's the programme. And I hope I've given you a flavour of that interface through the programme. So it just remains for me to thank Jane and Lizzie and David and all the team and the sponsors, so Google, DeepMind and National Grid, for putting on today this Open for Business Day. Thank you.